Hello, I'm Brian Lucareli, Director of our Private Client Services Group and co-chair of our Family Offices team at Foley and Lardner. And I'm here today with Emmaline Jurgena, an associate and member of our Estates and Trust Practice Group. Welcome, Emmeline.
Thanks, Brian.
Yep. And today we're going to discuss ways to plan for next generation's involvement in family foundations. But Emmeline, before we get started, would you mind just sharing a little bit of your professional background with our audience, and then we'll jump right into it?
Sure. So as Brian said, I'm an associate in the Estates and Trust practice. I also have substantive experience in tax-exempt organizations. So I work a lot with family foundations, which we'll be discussing today. I also work with a variety of other types of tax-exempt organizations, including hospitals, universities, public charities, and anything else.
Well, that's great background, and certainly you're a good expert for today. So I'm going to jump right in with some questions that you helped me develop. So let's start out with, when should family foundations start planning for the next generation's involvement?
The real answer to that is it's before you think. So family foundations should really think carefully about their succession planning long before it needs to be implemented. This is because effective succession planning involves not only the selection of successor decision makers, but also the training, the onboarding, and the preparation. So to accomplish this effectively, current decision makers need to determine who is the best choice to perpetuate the foundation's mission and purposes. So for a lot of times we see in family foundations where the real purpose is to develop a philanthropic legacy and to give their family a philanthropic vehicle, the best choice for this is the next generation. So the children of the current decision makers. In other cases, the best choice might be a mix of these family members and professionals. So someone that's involved in the mission or has been involved in the foundation for some time.
Great. So kind of sequencing that further, how should family foundations prepare that next generation?
Really, the best way to prepare successor decision makers, whether those are the children or someone else, is that to make sure that they understand the purpose of the foundation and then how it works. So, for example, who are the investment advisors? What is the time commitment? What are the responsibilities? Those kind of things. And a helpful way that we see people do this is to have the children or other successor decision makers come and sit in on the board meetings and sit in on those types of decision-making meetings before they're actually in the position to make those decisions. That way they can understand how the foundation works. They can also ask any questions they have while the current decision makers are still there. Other things we see are succession plans can be structured so that new decision makers are joining more experienced successors rather than the entire board turning over at once. So that way you retain that institutional knowledge.
So that's good. And I'm going to change gears a little bit here. So, what proactive steps should be taken to mitigate conflict between family members who serve as successor decision makers?
Right. So, of course, you hope that your children or any other successor decision makers are going to all work together and it's going to work out fine. And for a lot of family foundations, we do see that. But that said, we have a couple of recommendations for some things you might consider implementing. So, one is to structure the foundation so that each child, if, for example, there's multiple children that are going to come in the next generation, has the ability to direct certain amounts of distributions. So this can really be as easy as taking the distributable amount that the foundation gives out each year, dividing it by the number of children, and saying, okay, each child can give this amount to causes that are important to them. You can also give this flexibility, but limit it by saying any cause that's important to them, but our family foundation is really dedicated to supporting the arts. So it has to be an arts cause or it has to be in this geographic area. Another related idea is to have the children work together, but allow them, if needed, to break off a piece. So
That
their
makes
portion
sense.
of the foundation. And how that would work is they would take their portion and start a new foundation. Some foundations are understandably apprehensive about this, but I like to frame it as, you want the next generation to carry on a philanthropic legacy. And if this is the best way for your children to carry that out, then that's a positive. That's a net positive to allow them to continue engaging in this philanthropy, supporting causes that the family's passionate about, and doing it in a structure that works for them.
Makes sense. So, lastly, and a pretty important question, but how do the current decision makers ensure the next generation will support the causes that are important to the foundation? I mean, this is the premise of the entire thing.
Right. So that's a really good question. People are concerned. We started this family foundation and it's been going great, but when we are no longer running it, how can we make sure it's still going the way that we envisioned it? So there's a couple of ways to do that. So one is to make really clear what the foundation's purpose is. So if your foundation does have a specific mission or a specific cause that it's really dedicated to, you want to make that clear in the governing documents. You want to make it clear at those pre-onboarding meetings where the prospective successive decision makers are there so that they understand what the Family Foundation is all about. And something we run into is the current decision makers think this is obvious, this is why we formed. But
Right.
as you get further and further through the generations, that does go away and it does not become as obvious. So that's one option. Other family foundations, another type of family foundations we see is, we don't really have a specific purpose like that. We do want it to just be what the children are passionate about. So in that case, that's absolutely fine. And we see those work out well. What you want is your successor decision makers to just stay engaged. So that means making sure that they're able to support causes that they're passionate about, making sure that they understand why philanthropy is important to the family, making sure that they understand what the time commitment is. Sometimes we see family foundations consider some sort of compensation provisions for successor decision makers that are really dedicating a lot of time to this. All of those things are options, and we can discuss, other options as well. But really, engagement, making sure that successor generations still feel the same passion that created the family foundation in the first place is important.
Well, great counsel. Emmeline, I want to thank you for your expertise today, and I want to thank all of you for watching our presentation. For more information, please visit us at foley.com under Family Offices. Thank you.